So there's this phrase in the scriptures, whether it's Jesus teaching or Paul writing or John writing, that appears over and over again. And at first glance, it seems really easy. But the more you wrestle with it, the more complicated it gets and the more frustrating it becomes that it's there in the first place, because it requires you and I to think about others more. This is the phrase, one another. Over and over again, Jesus would say that you should blank one another. And they would fill that in often with love one another, serve one another, encourage one another, show up for one another, even sometimes challenge one another. Part and parcel to what it means to be a Jesus follower is relationships. The other people in our lives and how we engage with them and how we converse with them and how we treat them. And so, good news, bad news is if this is your first time back at church in a long time, I'm sorry, because you're going to hear a lot about how you should impact the people that you work with, how you should impact the people that you live with. But hopefully, even if you're like, I'm not bought into the Jesus thing, you still go, okay, there's a few things in here that would actually make my relationships better, because I would learn better how to one another. But I said this appears a lot. It's actually just over 100 times in what we call the New Testament, or the second half of the Bible. Like I said, Jesus said it, Paul says it, James says it, John says it, Peter says it. Over and over and over again, you see this is how we should one another. And what usually comes to mind when I read it, you're probably way better than me, but when I read it, I think about the people that I like. I think about the people that I get along with and the people that I admire. They're easy to love. They're easy to encourage. And so, yes, we could give a series on how to love the people that you love, but we thought it would be more helpful to do a series on the one dreaded. You know, the person that you hope isn't at the party. You know, the person that's waiting at home that you're hoping didn't have a bad day that would then make you have a bad day. We're talking about the anothers that we need to one another, that we don't love, maybe even don't like, because that's way more difficult. And those are the times where we realize, oh, this Jesus thing is not all pep talk and feel good. It's ridiculously difficult at times. And so when we talk about the anothers, we're talking about the ways that we can learn to love the people that we don't understand. And we're going to look at three particular groups of people. On week 3, we're going to talk about our spouses, because you need to love them. I don't know if anybody ever told you that, but you need to love them. And not in a, hey, I put food on the table, or hey, I make sure this part of our family, like business, is done, but in the way that Jesus outlined and the scriptures outlined for us. And by the way, if you're sitting here going, oh, cool, I don't need to come to week 3 because I'm not married. Everything we're going to talk about in this series, even though we're going to apply it to a particular person for some of us, it applies to every person for all of us. So on week 2, when we talk about what does it mean to love our frenemies, some of you are like, I don't even know what that is, so I probably don't have one. These are the people that are probably your friend, but you kind of want to hit sometimes. That's your frenemy. You might go to church with a lot of frenemies. But this week, we're going to talk about what I consider to be the most difficult of these groups, the anothers that is the most challenging to me, because I'm a dad. And I want to talk about our children. You love your children. You don't always like your children. It's okay. This is a safe place, and we can be honest with one another. Because sometimes our kids do things that drive us absolutely insane. And if you are a student, a teenager sitting in the room, or a young college person, and you're like, I didn't do that, just ask your parents. You did, because I did. And I thought I was a relatively good kid, but there are things that my parents would go, this drove me crazy about him. Our kids, though, are not going to stay kids forever. And by the way, just to jump back, because some of you are going, cool, I am getting on Instagram. I don't have kids. I don't have to worry about this. You might have kids one day. Or if you're going, I'm done with the whole kids thing. Or even if you're going, I don't want to have my own kids thing. I have great news for you. Right now, there are more than 100 kids down in our kids wing, and you could volunteer and learn exactly what I'm talking about. But the best part is, after an hour, you send them back to mom and dad, and you're off the hook. But our kids are not going to stay kids. They're going to become adults. And if we don't parent with that in mind, odds are we're going to do something we wish we didn't. Or we're not going to do something that we wish we had. Those kids are going to become adults, and they're going to have relationships with their coworkers or their classmates or their neighbors or their spouses or their kids. And we may not like this truth, but they're watching you. They're learning how those things go based on how you go through them. So even if you're not a parent, but you're an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent, or you just are really close to some friends that have kids that call you uncle or aunt, the things that we're going to talk about today are vital because those kids, they are patterning their life after you. They may not say that out loud. In fact, there are days where they're going to make you feel like they're going the opposite direction. But I can promise you they're going to come back to not what you said, but what you did. So for us, we have to keep in mind that our kids are going to become somebody's another, which means we need to learn how to one another our children. For me, I've been a dad for 21 years now. And for most of that time, I thought of my kids being in one bucket and everybody else in my life being in another bucket. And here's how that played out. I could get away with saying things or doing things with my kids that I would never do with any of these people or say to any of these people. I could behave a way with my kids that I would never behave with everybody else. And the problem with that thinking is it's not how Jesus thought. Jesus didn't say love one another unless they're your kids. Then you just kind of have to make sure they don't die. He didn't say love your enemies and then just be okay to the people that you love. There's just this broad stroke that Jesus and everybody that's ever followed him and wrote it down would say, you just love them. The problem is there's no passage for parents to go to in the Bible that tells us exactly how to do that. I looked on every page. I didn't find this verse. Here are all the ways to be a phenomenal parent and not mess up your kids. That's nowhere. In fact, most of the examples that you find in the Bible are dumpster fire families. The parents are terrible and the kids are worse. Nobody's going to read it and go, I want to be just like them as a family. You're not. And so you're going to be frustrated if you're going to the Bible to find all of the answers on how to be a really great parent. But it's not because those answers aren't there. It's just because the label wasn't put on it specifically for parents. What Jesus did was give us a broad bucket, a big old bucket that everybody in our life goes in, including our kids. Now, if you're sitting here on the edge of your seat like, oh my gosh, is he going to tell me I got to do something I don't want to do with my kids? My children are here. So everything that I say, they're going to remember today and question me about later, I promise. But that broad stroke is love one another, period. And again, my love sometimes is, did you have dinner tonight? Did you have a roof over your head? Did you get a nice backpack for school? Did I take you on vacation? See, I love you. But nowhere in the same book, nowhere is this verse that, hey, as long as you've provided the basic necessities for your children, it means you love them. The definition of love in the scriptures is way more difficult. And I wish it was simpler. I wish it was more vanilla, but it's not. It's pretty intense. So I want to look at a passage that we've looked at before on a Sunday morning, and odds are you have heard 100 times because it gets read at every single wedding you go to. It's the love chapter. It's 1 Corinthians 13. It was written by a guy named Paul to a church that gathered in a town called Corinth. And we've kind of hijacked it and turned it into just this romantic love thing, but that was not Paul's intention. It's actually supposed to be applied to every relationship in our life, including our kids. So even though there's no, here's how you parent your kids wonderfully and you don't mess them up, this is that. And by the way, side note, because I love you, you are going to mess up your kids. You're gonna. I'm gonna. And so I've decided the least I can do is pay for their counseling. Because it's gonna happen. You might be superstar parent, but your kids are your kids and you're the parent, and it's gonna go sideways at some point. But I think we should still do our best to love them in this way. Love is patient. We already have a problem. It's also kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It gets worse. It does not demand its own way. Some of us are like, but that's why I had children, to get my own way. I remember when I'd complain about taking the garbage out, my dad would come right out and say it. Why do you think we had you? So I don't have to do this stuff anymore. It's not irritable. And if you're a student or a kid in the room, you're like, but that's why I have parents, is to irritate them. Paul says, and it keeps no record of being wronged. See, when we start talking like this, and you start applying a big idea that Paul puts in his letter to a specific group of people, all of a sudden, the proverbial rubber is hitting the road. What do you mean not irritable with my kids? You go to work all day. You put up with those bozos in the office. You deal with traffic and bills. You have to come home and cook. You have to do all these things. The least you should be able to do is be irritated with people that want more from you the second you walk in the door. I know you would never think that. It's probably just me. But not irritated with our kids? That's like the one place in life where we feel like it should be okay. Maybe not irritated with the adults, but the kids, come on, they're kids. And when we talk about not getting our own way, most of us will justify it in terms of, I'm just trying to help them grow up to be a good member of society. So I've got to have guardrails and tell them what not to do and what to do and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, I am the boss. And I'm not arguing that. But the way that we go about leading them should be informed by this, and how much of what I'm telling my kids to do is for their own good versus my own good. And when I'm irritated, how much of it is because of something they are doing or something somebody else has done, myself included, to get me there? I think of it like this, a snow globe. Just PSA, it's less than 3 months away. So in my mind, Halloween is like the appetizer to Christmas, so 'tis the season, everybody, get ready. And you will decorate your home. Odds are you'll have at least one snow globe, and they're really cool and really beautiful. But it's an interesting thing that we do with them, because the best thing we can do with a snow globe is shake it furiously. And when you shake it, all of the dust or snow on the bottom gets stirred up, right? It starts floating around, and it looks like a blizzard in this little town, and we just sit and marvel at that. But you realize that when you shake the snow globe, you did not put those little speckles in there. At that point, you just stirred up something that was already there. It's not magic, like you shake it and poof, all of a sudden there's stuff. That stuff was all laying on the bottom. Something came along and irritated the globe. And now we got a mess. Actually, that's the language that Paul uses here. When he says it's not irritable, he's getting at it doesn't allow its already there anger to be stirred up. It doesn't allow the emotions that are already there to get stirred up. And I can tell you, because I trust you, most of the time when I am the most upset with my boys, it's because of something else that's going on inside me, not something that they did outside them. Most of the time it's a bad day or a blue day where I'm just feeling down, or I'm too busy, or I forgot to do the thing in the morning that now has created this snowball mess at the middle of the afternoon. It's not their fault, but they're there to receive my anger. And it's not because they did anything wrong, it's because something was already going wrong and they stirred it up. So I'm going to say this out loud and again remind you that my children are here. So this is going to bite me in the rear end all the time. My kids don't make me mad. And it's not because I don't get mad. It's because my anger is not their fault. When I'm irritable, it's because I'm getting stirred up with a bunch of other stuff that's going on. 9.9 out of 10 times, my kids are doing kids' things. When I walk into the living room and there is a pair of dirty socks on the floor for the 101st time in 3 days, I don't know how you wear that many pairs of socks in that amount of days, but my boys do it well. And I start freaking out, and I'm so mad. You can ask them about it. Yeah, Dad's freaked out about some stupid stuff. It's not because of the socks. It's because of a meeting I had that day, or an email I got, or the drive home from work, or the bad news that came out on the radio. It could be any number of things, and this is just what put the cherry on top. But my boys don't know that. They think I am a lunatic about socks. And they'll spend the rest of their lives worried about somebody finding their dirty socks. All because I was upset about getting cut off. Or I was upset because I didn't pull the ground beef out of the freezer, and now what are we going to have? I guess it's McDonald's again. You see, James actually talked about this, and I would just keep reminding you, even if you don't have kids, these principles are true with anybody in your life. Odds are it's not them that's making you mad, it's somebody else, something else. And it's usually something within you. This is what James wrote. What is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have. You know what I don't have when the socks are on the floor? A perfectly clean living room. What I don't have is the ability to come home from a long day of work and not have to do more work. That's what's really ticking me off. And what I so quickly forget is that about 30 years ago, those socks were my socks in my parents' living room. My 14-year-old did a 14-year-old thing. Some of you are like, my 50-year-old adult did a 14-year-old thing. But it's not about that. It's about something else. And this is why what I want to encourage you to think about is that no matter who it is, including your kids, the golden rule and the platinum rule always apply with all people. And in case you're thinking, oh, Josh is advocating that everybody should get a trophy just for participating, like we can never discipline or correct our kids. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the way that we engage with our kids and talk to our kids and look at our kids and move around our kids, these two things should apply. And you probably know the golden rule. even if you've never been to church before today, you know that the rule goes something like this: treat others the way that you want to be treated. Pretty simple, right? Odds are this isn't an employee handbook you got when you got hired at your job. This is the rule at grandma's house. This is the rule at the neighbor's house. We all try to live by this. But I'm really good at justifying it. And so are my kids, by the way. I've stepped into arguments between them, and I've said to one, is this how you would want to be treated? And they go, yeah, I don't care. Bring it. We can work around the golden rule. You can't work around the platinum rule, though. And another pastor labeled it this, but I love it. It's when Jesus said, you should love other people the way that I have loved you. You can't worm out of that. That's a lot more difficult. To love other people the way Jesus loved me means that there's no conditions. It means that I love my boys before they could even think about doing anything that shows they love me. And here's why this is so important. Because when we talk to other adults the way that we sometimes talk to our kids, that adult is going to look at us and go, what's wrong with you? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm a grown person too. You either need a Snickers bar or a nap, because you are not talking to me that way. I don't know what else you got going on, but figure it out. Right? We wouldn't do it. I would not engage with you out in the lobby the way I sometimes come home and engage with my kids. Never. And here's why this is so scary. Because when we do engage with our kids the way that we do, they don't do it like an adult. They do it like a kid. And they don't go, what's wrong with you? They go, what's wrong with me? Because even though you and I can go, we didn't put the snow in the snow globe, it was already there, and it just got stirred up, your kids assume they put it in there. Their snow is in your globe, and they messed you up, and they're the problem. They're in your way. They don't have the capacity to think that through. When you are in the break room and so that's on your team is barking at you, you have the ability to go, there's probably something bad going on, or it was so and not me, and I'm just on the receiving end of it, and blah, blah, blah. Your kids go the opposite direction. It must be me. It's always me. So we have to be conscious, and this is what I'm going to encourage you to do. Not because I do it well, but because I'm working on it. And when I get it, it helps. Instead of me going after my kids, I'm going to pause and I'm going to start asking myself this question: what's going on in me that I'm so upset with them about this? And what me doing that allows is for my kids to be kids. Let them put on the goofy ninja costume and go run around. Do not ask your non-adult kids to handle your adult problems. Uncles, aunts, grandpas, grandmas, friends of families who are so close that you get called uncle, aunt. Kids volunteer, person that walks through the lobby when other kids are out there. Know that they are watching you. They are paying attention. And your actions and your posture and your words are informing them on how it should look. So the better we get at what's going on in me, instead of what's wrong with you and why didn't you and why aren't you, what is it with me that's going on? We will let our kids stay kids and handle the adult things when they're grown-ups. So what I want to encourage you to do is parent your kid with your grown-up in mind. Parent your kid with your grown-up in mind. And I mean this on two fronts. Two grown-ups are in this equation. First grown-up is your kid. Eventually, they will be a grown-up. And who do you want them to be when they grow up? When they are an adult sitting in your living room, what do you want to be true of them? This is why we do our kids' stuff the way we do our kids' stuff. We're not just thinking about what does a first grader need. We're thinking about what do we want that first grader to be when they're a senior and they're walking across a platform at their high school. So we always have to be thinking about when these kids aren't kids anymore, what do we want to still be true of them? And then the other grown-up in the equation is you. It's the you wrestle with you piece. Parent them thinking about what's going on with you at work, in your marriage, in your friendships. Don't underestimate the power of constantly watching the news and how that's going to impact your demeanor and your feelings and all of that kind of stuff. All of these things play into who we are and how we are all day. So understand you're bringing all of that to the table when you sit down with a kid. So get away from thinking just in terms of what you do not want them to become. This is our default as parents. There's a bunch of scary things just off the road. So we've got to constantly keep them on the road. And we got to protect them and don't look over there and don't think about this and don't go, don't become them. Don't become me. Don't become your grandparents. And there are times where we need to do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't tell your kid to not look both ways before they cross the road. But a better way to come at it is what do you want them to actually become? And cheer them on and steer them on and exemplify for them what that looks like. Easy? No. Better? A little bit. Parent your kid with your grown-up in mind. Now, people like me stand up here and do things like this all the time. And if I were you, I would be sitting in your seat going, I bet this isn't like what it's like at home at all. Real easy to get up and give a real good talk, and then you're probably going to scream at your kids on the way home. You might be right about that. So just to prove to you that I get this wrong most of the time, I thought it would be an interesting experiment to invite my sons out here and have Carson interview us together. And this is either going to be the best idea I've ever had or the worst idea. So let's bring the boys out.
Yeah, you made a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the right choice, but we're here, and these are, and you're gonna think I'm saying it because we're on a stage. I mean this like with my heart. These are three of my favorite next-gen humans I've met. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, but I'm spoiling something out the gate because this will tell you so much about who they are. Not only are they doing the thing where they're going to school and living lives and whatever, they have a rap group called Triple Threat. And it's pretty legit. The music actually is amazing.
It's pretty good.
We'll be working on humility this week at home.
So, boys, go ahead and introduce yourselves. And you may have noticed they all carried something on stage with them. So go ahead and introduce yourselves and share why you brought this item that is representative.
Rap name or? Because rap name's Shiloh.
Oh, good.
I'm also Logan. I brought a guitar. It's a Lego set because I like making stuff. I like making movies and music and memories.
Amen.
And we're all looking at this, and I'm coming for it as soon as it's the time for the match.
But you may be coming for it, but you're not winning. So, my name is Cole. I'm not gonna use the rap name because I don't.
Is it not appropriate for a Sunday morning?
It's OBC. It's Offbeat Cole, but it's
Offbeat Cole. See, I got it out of him. I tricked him.
But I brought this because one of my favorite things to do with my dad is watch wrestling. This is the belt for it.
And that's like heavy. It's not plastic. It's like real metal. Yeah, it's wild. So strong as well.
My name's Sawyer, or Little Bean. I know it's the best one.
They're selling their CDs in the lobby. Good grief.
I brought an Xbox controller because I like playing video games. That's about it.
What's your go-to game right now?
Fortnite or
Classic.
Minecraft.
Okay. That's kind of exactly the answer I expected. So go ahead and, Josh, do you have a rap name? Do you ever get featured? I was going to go into what we were talking about. They said we don't let him on the song.
Yeah, they don't let me do anything on
That's
their
tough.
thing.
Do you have a favorite track they've produced?
What's the one? I'm so lit. Yeah, they. I'm sorry, everybody.
We'll talk about real stuff at some point. No, guys, so I kind of prepped you for this ahead of time, but I think we at a church will sit here and we'll watch your dad just give this perfect and polished image of what it looks like to be a leader and spiritual guide and a dad even, but I'm sure he's perfect at home all the time too. What's one moment that your dad got irritable or he was notably upset about something?
Well, one time, not long ago, we were in Michigan.
Hold on, you didn't even hesitate. You
He told me
had
to
this ready to go.
And I wanted a Zippo lighter because I thought, oh, this looks cool.
Right.
And then my dad was like, oh, you can't get this. You don't have any money. And I was like, but I want it. I really want it. And then he was like, la, la, la. And we argued for 20 minutes straight about it. And then now I don't want one. So. But I never got it. So.
I basically won.
So a few years ago, I was probably 11 or something like that. We were at our friend's house, and I wanted to spend the night. We all did. But somebody didn't like that idea. not gonna say any names, but they didn't like the idea.
Yeah, because you know who pays for it the next day? Me.
Well,
Crabbiness.
Honestly, it wasn't your fault. It was their mom's fault. I'm being honest.
Well, don't throw her under the
I'm
bus.
not throwing.
Yeah, she's
I didn't say
watching
her
this
name.
service right now.
I didn't say her name. I didn't say her name. But yeah, so we never got that sleepover, and it was a tough car ride home.
Yeah, argumentative.
Silent car ride?
Oh, no, not silent.
You
not
just go
quiet.
for it.
We argued.
The question, when he's irritable?
Yeah. or when he's been-
every day at school, and maybe on Sundays sometimes. But actually, not tomorrow, because school's off Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day, so.
Thank you.
That's not going to be happening
You're right.
tomorrow, but pretty much most mornings.
I do feel like the thing that I've heard you be the least like Jesus about is the pick up and drop off line.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst.
That is the thorn
And you're
in
not
your
even
side.
you're not even in the pick
I
up and drop
feel
off.
like in 2 minutes I could fix the pickup and drop off line.
Yeah, you should just be in charge of it then.
I wish I could.
It got
sure
so
you-
If
bad.
you're watching Woodland Schools, I'm your guy.
Oh, I guess you do have to do it at his schools. Because at mine, he goes to the library, and it's down the street. We have to walk to the car.
There you go.
I make them walk 1 block so I don't have to wait in the dumb
But when it's the
line.
winter time, come on now, come on.
Hey, some of these people had to walk uphill both ways in the snow.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
you got it easy, buddy.
Josh, real talk, in those moments of tension, disagreement, what do you learn about parenting, about yourself? How do you get through those moments where you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I mean, I've said this to a lot of you out in the lobby when you've been very gracious and complimentary of my talks. I always say, I'm just giving talks I need to hear.
Yeah.
So that's really what today is. It's like a group therapy session for me as a dad.
Yes, we'll invoice you later for this.
Thank
by the
you.
way. Yes.
It really is getting to that place of, are they doing anything different than what they should be doing at their age? So
Yeah.
Sawyer will be 12 next month, Cole's 14, Logan's 16. And there's a lot of times where I'm expecting them to think and act like a 44-year-old, which isn't fair. Because when I was their age, I didn't do those things. I left my laundry laying around. I did clean up my room. My brother's here. He can verify. I kept my room pretty clean. But I did a lot of dumb things that irritated my parents too. And it wasn't because I was a bad kid, it was just because I was a kid. And I think that those are the moments where, like, the reason I get irritated before school, just so you don't think I'm a terrible person, is because some people take forever to get out of bed. I have to go, but when I was their age, I didn't want to get up and go to school either.
No,
you know,
for sure.
like I know there's kids in the room, but I hated school.
Yeah.
And so I have to have some grace in that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't jump out of bed to go to school.
I also feel like we did not script this. I might get in trouble for saying this. I feel like the fact that you have to go to school and then, like, your dad's a pastor, so one of your 2 days off, you got to also get up early. That's tough, right?
Even earlier to come to church.
Like, I got to go talk to a bunch of people. Their breath smells like coffee. And, like, and they're getting way too close to me. I don't know. No, boys, I guess I'd ask one more thing, like, get a little more dirt on your dad, I guess, so we all have blackmail. Is like, what's one place that you've disagreed and you're like, you think your way is better, or where he's been like, no, that my way is better?
And I've beat them into submission.
Yeah.
They don't want to argue with me.
Being very careful of what they say in a room full of people. Anything?
I might have to think about that.
That's okay.
I mean, there's too many to pick from.
There's too
I
many.
can give
That's
an
fine. No, just
example.
joking.
I can
Oh,
give an
so
example.
Lil Bean is ready.
Oh, he's ready. Good.
I don't have like a story, but like
It's okay.
a lot of the times in mornings for school, obviously, but even in the mornings for church, like this morning, he wouldn't get up. So my dad was like, "You gotta go, come on."
You're throwing. We're supposed to be getting dirt on him, not me.
That's fair.
Okay, I do have one now. Because we share a bathroom, and I like to save time because you have such a big problem with me taking forever, you know, getting the hair all nice and stuff. But
It is immaculate.
thank
For
you.
the record, maybe
Thank
it's
you,
Maybelline.
thank you. You know, this just doesn't happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Put some respect on it, everybody.
But yeah, so I like brushing my teeth in the shower because it saves a little bit of time instead
And
of me
that's
going out.
gross.
It is not gross. No. Because I will say it is my fault. I do sometimes leave the toothpaste in there. First of all, our older brother isn't here. If he was here, though, you'd see yellow teeth. He doesn't. At least I'm brushing.
Again, this is being recorded.
And I'm watching the camera. At least I'm brushing.
You brush your teeth in the shower.
Yes, he
Why?
does.
That's disgusting. Like, what happens when the shampoo gets on your toothpaste, and then you're like, what? What happened?
I've said all these
Then you're
things to
eating-
him. He doesn't listen.
Then you're eating.
Okay, wait.
Uh,
As much as I love this,
Sorry.
I do feel like we need to honor the time of the people here. So let's end on this one, and then Josh, you can rally back. But like, there's a lot of parents out here, and a lot of parents watching online, and like, I think it can be a struggle. I know you guys haven't like gotten to that phase of life where things get even harder, but they do. And then you have kids, and I feel like it gets even harder. And so if there's parents who are out here just needing a little bit of hope or need like your perspective from a kid, what's one thing that a parent out there would need to hear this morning? Something to encourage or uplift them?
We're never gonna be perfect, so I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't expect us to be like, I don't know, perfect. It's not gonna happen. I'm 14. You're expecting me to act like a grown man? It's not even fair.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, where it's kind of just like, we're not going to be perfect, and you are our biggest role models, so it's like, you know, it's not always easy to figure things out on our own, because it is kind of, sometimes, especially when it's the hard stuff, it's usually kind of our first time, especially when you know, I don't know, it's just, sometimes you get into some hard times, and we need somebody to lean on, and we're usually looking to you guys for, like, how do we get through stuff and things like that.
Yeah, heard.
Nothing?
Lil Bean says no.
No advice.
He's not.
Nothing.
He's not stepping in that mess.
Yeah, Josh, when you, I guess, think about it holistically, anything else that comes to mind?
I think what you just did is key for every parent. And I know we always think we should be the ones instructing, But I've learned more about how to be a good dad for my boys by asking them how to be a good dad. And honestly, I learned that from their mom. Heidi has always been great about when they're struggling, it's not the right answer for me to just start yelling. And I joked about this last service. I'm going to say it again here. Their oldest brother, Jake, wishes I had gotten to the place where I'm at now, because when he would get a bad grade, I would scream at him and yell at him and tell him he was screwing his life up and all of these kinds of things, and it didn't help. And Heidi was always good about, let's ask him what he needs so that we can support him and we can help boost him along. And I don't get that right all the time with these guys, but certainly sitting down and going, what is it that you need when they've had a bad day or they have a bad grade? How can I best support you? Which feels like not something a parent should do. We should have the answers. But I mean, any human being knows, if you really want to help me, ask me what I need help with. And I think that's true for no matter how old they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Well, can we applaud the vulnerability of Triple Threat, dude? That's awesome. That was so fun. Logan said album coming out soon. Keep an eye out.
We want
Who
to,
said
but
that? Don't encourage them.
somebody's not allowing us to.
I feel like in church we normally pray.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to do.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Let's do that. And then when I say amen, one more thing for you before you head out. Heavenly Father, thank you for children. And I know that not all of us have had kids in this room. Some of us wish we could, and we can't. And so for them, maybe this has been a really difficult morning. But we recognize that even if we haven't had our own, you still seem to give us plenty of places in life where we can have kids in our life. And we want to love them well. I want to love my sons well, and not in just the provide for them way, but in the ways that you said, we're really loving them, being patient with them and kind with them, and not being irritable, and not demanding my own way, even when I think my way is right. God, that's really difficult. But when they grow up, I want them to know what true love is. I want them to know how you love them. So help me to love them the way that you love me. Help us to love our kids the way you love us. Thanks for the example. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey.